Welcome to the Throwdown.
Brandon, what are we gonna do this week?
We're gonna announce a workout, and then we're gonna invite all of our wonderful YouTube community to join us in doing it.
That sounds like a plan. We're gonna give you guys pacing, strategy, post the warm-up in the description below, and then afterward, Max is gonna
share some long-term development tips.
Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
Fellas, let's see if we can do Name Fest 2019. Say as many names as you can in 90 seconds. 3, 2, 1, go. False start. 3, 2, 1, go.
This week we got the Rogue invite, Travis, Noah Olson, KT Trombetta, and Andrea Neisler, not sure how to pronounce it. She's competing on a team. Then we've got
Brazil Sanctional, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy with the beard. Only his warm-ups are longer than that thing. Lucas Parker. And then my man Will Morad doing his 50th Sanctional of the year.
20th the last time we filmed it, 13th the first time. Keeps growing. Then we've got Matt Gillipin competing in the Down Under Sanctionals as well. Now, Brandon, for the Insta shout out.
All right, from last week's workout, we got our boy Ty Kruger crushing it.
We got Mickey Smith with 2 1s in the name.
I like that you said that. Jarturo Flores.
We got D Nave Fit.
Calcanini won, one of Ryan's athletes.
We got Jay Banks 003, not quite 007 status yet.
Not James Bond yet. We got Chase Taylor, made coach, crushing it.
And then S Dunn with 2 N's, 13090.
Great job, guys.
Why you gotta have that long of a name?
Yeah, I don't understand it. Like,
There's
just put your name on there.
Yeah, you're Brandon Dorman.
Yes.
I'm Kyle Ruth. Those should be your Instagram.
Just do it. All right, Max, he's the one that wrote the workout. Take us away.
This week's workout is a 7-minute AMRAP. 7 handstand push-ups, 7 overhead squats, 7 burpee box jump overs. For the burpee box jump overs, it's a 24 or a 20-inch box. You can do those however you'd like. You can do them lateral, you can do them facing. You can jump over the box if you'd like. The overhead squat weight is 115 and 85. And for the handstand push-up, we have a new standard. There's 4 key points to this. The first is that you measure your wingspan, tip of the finger to tip of the finger. You take that, divide it by 2, and that's gonna be your box width. The depth of the box is still the 24-inch standard that has been pretty common in CrossFit competition. So that's standard number 1. Standard number 2, at the top of the handstand push-up, your feet inside of your hips. Third standard, your face has to come through the window of your arms at the top of the handstand push-up. And the fourth is that your butt cannot be on the wall at the top of the handstand push-up.
All right, we're back to a fast one, short 7-minute AMRAP, and those that don't have any bottlenecks will be flying through this like Travis did in the demo.
Last week was heavy. A lot of people got capped by the workout. This week, there's no time cap. It's an AMRAP, and people are gonna be moving faster this.
Yeah, let's see what our on-site athletes had to say.
Be prepared for your shoulders and your legs to hurt a lot. Just don't stop. It's 7 minutes. It's a sprint. Just be mentally tough and get ready to fight.
I don't do lateral burpees unless you're going out at like a +6 round pace, and even still, I think jump up facing, step off, save your legs. My legs exploded like 1 round in.
Advice for the people at home?
Pace, but don't pace too much. It's really short. Don't go out hot like I did. Just pace it out, nice and smooth.
Depending on handstand push-ups, if that's where you need to break a lot, break them up early from the beginning. But if not, you can kind of always keep moving on all of these movements. Since it is kipping and not strict, that makes it easier. Warm your legs up really well for the overhead squats. I think I got 3 rounds in and was like, oh no, this just got real fast. And I don't know why some people would go box facing. I felt like lateral is gonna be 10 times faster, just the distance to it. So figure out what pace and strategy works for you on the burpee box jump over to save as much time.
Just go fast. By the time it hurts, you only have 3 minutes left, so deal with it.
Your shoulders are gonna hurt. Your forearms are probably gonna hurt. Break up handstand push-ups early.
Don't go out too hot.
My shoulders blew up. My legs didn't go, but my shoulders blew up.
Like, just best of luck. Do your thing. Stay in your lane, right?
Oh. I'm not really good on the camera.
No one is.
Stay consistent on your burpees even when you're tired, because those will slow you down. Get in a good position on the overhead squats so you don't wobble around and burn your shoulders out. Move really fast.
And that's it.
All right, this week we're
Can I just tell everybody real quick that we did an entire video for an hour and your mic wasn't on?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure whose fault that was.
Yep, not saying anything.
Not sure.
All right, go ahead.
It was probably mine, most likely. So this week we implemented a new handstand push-up standard. So this is something Max and I have been talking about basically since the Open, since they put out that 3x2 foot box. So the standard for this week is you're gonna measure between middle finger and middle finger, your wingspan, divide that by 2, and that's gonna be your box. It's a little bit different than the Open standard. What it does is it takes away some of the disadvantage for taller athletes. Brandon, I know you've got a couple thoughts on this, so you want to share those before?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have all talked as coaches, and I disagreed with the standard, but I think the important thing here is that even if I disagree or maybe you disagree with some of the standards, we're in a sport where there are standards and we just have to do it. So, and it's, one of the themes today is going to be adaptability. So I think that my thing is while I disagree with it and I think that there should just be kind of the same standard across the board for everything in the sport, I still have to do with what's set out, and that's kind of what I'm competing in. So I think it's a good thing for people to we all complain when new standards come out in the Open, but the reality is everyone's doing it, so figure it out and learn how to be the best you.
I agree. I've always disliked when people complain about something without offering some sort of alternative, and that was what this was. It was Max and I trying to, we weren't going to complain about the Open standard, but I wanted to offer a potential alternative. So this is a chance for you to test it out. Let us know what you thought of the standard in the comments below as well.
Awesome. So last week we talked, or the last couple of weeks, we kind of have been adding in some educational tips to how to be a better athlete or how to compete better. In week 1, we talked about self-awareness. Last week we talked about the concept of separation value. And this week we're going to try to tie that together with expectation and expectation management, because no matter how self-aware you are and how you separate yourself, sometimes things just don't go the way that you expect, especially in the sport where it's just chaos all the time.
Very rarely does a workout go the way that you expect it to beforehand. So
we kind of broke this down into 2 parts. The first one is kind of going back to that self-aware and knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are. So when we set expectations for a workout, you have to know where you're going to be good, where you're going to be bad, and where you think you can either make up or lose time, which is the concept of separation value.
Yeah, I look at this workout, I'm like, well, out of these 3 movements, my handstand push-ups are probably the weakest, pretty strong at overhead squats, and very, very good at cycling burpee box jump overs.
Right. So if you were doing this workout, you would look at that and then say, okay, now how do I strategize the handstand push-ups to get the best time that I possibly can?
Yeah, maybe I take a longer break before the kipping handstand push-ups, the first set, or something like that to give me the best opportunity to get a good score here.
Exactly. So I think that, obviously if you have a coach that you would want to talk to them and kind of start developing these ideas of how do I set up my expectations, and then how do I create separation value in the workout.
For instance, if you had to be off training for 8 weeks to film a reality show, and then you came back and your first workout was this workout.
Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah. What do you do? What should your expectations be?
Is he in the video?
Yeah. He actually did pretty good too.
To finish the workout, it's an AMRAP, so everyone's going to finish.
Yeah, that is true. How many reps you can get in the 7 minutes. The part that we really want to talk about, and I'll let you kind of take this away, is being adaptable, especially in CrossFit, in workouts.
Absolutely. So I think for most people, when they look at this workout in particular, they look at it and they're like, handstand push-ups, shoulders. Then we got overhead squat, isometric, shoulders. Then we've got the press and the burpee, box jump over, shoulders. And you're like, man, I need to come up with a way to mitigate shoulder fatigue in this workout. But when you talk to all the people who did the workout on site afterward, what was the comment that all of them made?
It's funny that you say that, because one of the things that I do every week is go and try to get feedback from everyone that's on site. And almost everyone said, man, my legs blew up. I thought it was going to be my shoulders, but my legs started blowing up and it slowed my burpee box jump overs down, which I thought would be fine the entire time.
So the important thing here, the important thing to take away is that what your expectation of a workout is going to be. So like me going into this, I'm like, oh man, it's handstand push-ups that I need to pay the most attention to. But I have very little experience doing handstand push-ups into overhead squats. It's just not a combo that gets trained that much. What happens to my overhead squats after I've done a bunch of kipping handstand push-ups? Is it going to be that my shoulders are fatigued and I can barely hold the barbell over my head? Or my legs fatigued from driving my hips out of the kip and it's potentially blowing up my legs in the overhead squats? And then take that into the burpee box jump overs where my legs might get blown up. It's like the difference is that a workout, when it's combined with different elements, is different than just doing one of them, handstand push-ups on their own or overhead squats on their own. And so it's important for athletes to be adaptable to whatever the circumstances is, whatever the circumstances for the workout are.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and we see this in every sport. And I was telling you a story about Peyton Manning before because I just read it. His last season, he won the MVP, won the Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos, and he had a serious neck injury before that season. And he said that he couldn't even do a push-up before the season started, and let alone throw a football or anything else. And obviously he goes on to be the most valuable player. But one of the things that kind of caught my eye, and I was just like, man, this is amazing, is he talked about being adaptable. He's like, I couldn't throw the ball the same way. I couldn't move the same way. I didn't have any strength, but I found a new method that worked for me to be the best player that I could be. And obviously it's a different sport, but the same thing applies here in that things may look like they're going to go a certain way in a competition, but once you get into the workout, almost always things feel different than what you expect. And so learning how to change your kind of concept in the middle of the workout of the way you're going to pace or the way that you're going to rest or whatever it may be, you're going to have to do that on the fly and be okay with it. You see the best in the sport. Like Rich is such a great example. Back in 2014, they did the burpee thruster workout. And I don't know if everybody remembers, but like Sam Briggs flew out.
Him and Sam, well, essentially racing down the floor.
Sam was 20 reps ahead of him probably at one point, or maybe 15 reps. And everybody's like, oh, Rich isn't going very fast. But his pace just always stayed the same throughout. And then 9.63, he kicked it in and ended up winning the workout. And Sam did an incredible job. I mean, her engine is amazing. But it's kind of that point of like, he knew what he was feeling, and then he slowed down when he needed to, he picked it up when he needed to, he adapted in the workout, and then obviously crushed it at the end. That's just a great example.
So there's two takeaways here. To be successful, or any successful athlete is going to do the following. First off, they're going to create a plan. They're going to be aware of their own limitations, and they're going to create a plan to maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. And then the second piece is that in a workout, they're going to be adaptable. They're going to recognize that whatever plan they created beforehand isn't necessarily going to reflect exactly what they do when they're on the floor. And when things start to hit the fan, then they're going to start to make some changes at that point.
The best in every sport know how to make changes on the spot, under pressure, and that's how they perform better than everyone else.
So let's break down this workout and give people some tips for this.
All right, our overall thoughts and strategy for this workout, we kind of broke it into 3 different categories. First is like, and this you'll see this with Travis, is the high level, no bottlenecks. And the kind of 2 things they got to look at is, what are my transitions or my inner movement rests, and then burpee pace on this, because that's the longest movement. No matter how fast you go, that movement takes longer than the handstand push-ups and the overhead squats.
So for someone who has no bottlenecks, the keys are minimize your rest between the movements, and then how fast can you cycle the burpee box jump overs without blowing up.
Correct.
And we've also thought, you and I have talked about this off camera, but what about the idea of doing an every minute on the minute version of this workout to get you exactly 7 rounds? So we're doing an every 50-second version of this workout to try and get 8 rounds or something like that. What are your thoughts on a strategy like that?
Yeah, for someone that doesn't have a bottleneck, I think that's a really good decision. And Travis and I actually talked about this before the workout, because he was trying to beat Max by 3 rounds. They made a bet before the workout. Max got 5 rounds, and then Travis went right after him. And so I said, hey, look, if you do this on the 50 to 52 seconds, you're going to be well ahead of that pace, and you'll be able to kind of crush it your last round, and it's just kind of grinding out the rest of the reps. He went out and did like 34 seconds in his first round and then just went right back to the wall. So he probably overpaced a little bit. I think he would have been better off if he just did it on the 50, because it would have gave him enough rest to keep a fast pace.
If he had gone 34 seconds on the first round, rested to the 50-second mark, and then started his next round and been close to that 34-second again, that would have been probably a better strategy than going out as hard as he possibly can until he hit a wall.
And this could be the case even for someone that is a little bit slower. Like, let's say, hey, my goal is 5 rounds or 6 rounds. It may be, and again, it depends on what your limitation is, but it may be wise to go on the minute 15 or on the minute 10, depending on who you are. And you can bank sometimes. Some people like to go out a little bit hotter, and they know, like, my handstand push-up is going to blow up no matter what. So I'm going to go on the minute for 3 minutes, and then I'm going to go on the minute 10 for 3 minutes and see if I can get to 6 rounds or whatever it may be.
Or hang on to on the minute as long as you can and then fall off that.
For sure.
So what about for someone specifically who has a handstand push-up limiter, someone who's going to get into this workout and maybe they've got 1 round of 7 unbroken, and then they're going to have to start breaking? What are your thoughts for improving performance for someone like that?
I actually had someone on site who, they don't have a handstand push-up limitation per se, but that was going to be the biggest limitation of the 3. And so we talked about it before the workout. Hey, what's your goal? Okay, I want to get 6 rounds. All right. So then we know that you're going to be doing 42 handstand push-ups if you get it 6 rounds. That's about the limit to where he starts breaking down. So I said to him, always make sure that you move quickly to the handstand push-ups, because he's good at getting off one movement, going to the next. That saves some time.
Right.
But then break into cluster sets early and often. So what he did is the first 2 rounds were unbroken, and then even though he still had a pretty fast speed, he decided to go 4-3 for the next 2 rounds, and then he broke down.
Fast speed, you mean fast cycle rate of the handstand push-ups.
Correct. His cycle rate was still fast. And one of the things that I told him is like, hey, as soon as they start slowing down, definitely break. Like if you feel like you have to grind any reps, you need to get off the wall, because you know how it is and everyone that's listening to this, when your shoulders blow up, they blow up.
Yeah, if a handstand push-up is done, it's done. This also kind of ties into the thing you've talked about before, which is that there's no such thing as over-pacing, only over-resting. So for a strategy like this, if you're someone whose handstand push-ups are the big limiter, then just try to make sure that you minimize your intra-set or your intra-movement rest on that handstand push-up, where it's like, hey, I'm gonna do 3, kick down, 1, 2, 3, kick up, do 2, kick down, 1, 2, 3, do my 2, and then move on. It keeps a workout like this, which needs to be fast-paced to hit a good score. It keeps you moving really, really effectively throughout the workout.
Absolutely.
I might even say if you're someone who's like 7 unbroken is a limit, don't do 7 unbroken in the first set. Right?
Yeah.
Start it out at 3-2-2 or something like that. That's going to be sustainable longer into the workout with small rest breaks.
Yeah, it's one of those movements where you can kick down and not lose that much time. It's similar to like a deadlift or chest bar, where people think they need to go unbroken, but in reality, it's like if you just drop off the bar, take a 3-second break and jump back up, it's only a 3-second difference. What I did see people do is they go through the burpee box jump overs, and then they take like a 15 to 20 second rest before they did handstand push-ups just to go unbroken, when in reality they could have kicked up right away, so maybe a 1 or 2 second transition, done 4, and then take a 10-second break and then do 3. Now their total rest time's 11 seconds as compared to 20 seconds. So now it's net 9 seconds per round.
This would be completely different if it were a strict handstand push-up workout, but that does work for a kipping handstand push-up workout. So the other big thing that we saw was that people with major limitations in their overhead positions getting bottlenecked on this workout in the overhead squat. Brandon, what are your thoughts about someone who struggles to maintain even just a decent position during an overhead squat?
Yeah, the first thing, and I know that we're in agreement on this, you need to fix your movement. Like you gotta create better positions in the sport, because now, especially more than ever, all the best move well, so their capacity is just gonna show through, whereas you may have the same capacity as them, but in reality, if you have a movement limitation, you just can't do the work. And that's what we saw with the overhead squats for some people, or like a heavy snatch or other things that are overhead limited. The other thing too to mention is, even if you can grind through the overhead squats, having bad movement creates a shoulder burnout way faster than someone that has good shoulder mechanics. So then the burpee box jumps and the handstand push-ups are much harder than they should be. So that's something that you have to keep in mind.
Having good movement allows you to perform the movement with less energy cost. That's the best way that I can think about it. Per rep. Yeah. And so that if you have poor movement, each rep of overhead squat is going to cost you more than someone who has good movement patterns.
Correct.
I think in week 5, Max is planning on addressing building and developing overhead mechanics. If you're someone who really struggles with this, when we put out week 5 of the Throwdown, make sure you check out the continuing development stuff that Max puts together for that. We saw it as such a limitation here that I think he's going to specifically address it in that episode.
Yeah, for sure. I think the last thought for me on the overhead squat is the reality in a workout like this is if you're doing it and you are competing, you do just have to get through it. So I know that may seem like a bad coaching tip, but if you're in the heat of the moment, you got to figure it out. So even if you have bad positions, you got to kind of grind through the reps and kind of find your best path moving forward to get the best score that you can get.
As long as you're not risking injury, I agree with that completely.
Sure. One of the things that you can do on that is banking rest beforehand. So I saw a lot of people that try to rush the overhead squat that had bad mechanics, and usually I would say fast transitions, but when you know it's that big of a limitation, give your shoulders a little bit of a break after the handstand push-ups before you get to the overhead squats so that you know you can get into a good position and hold it overhead.
Absolutely. So as with previous weeks, we've got a warm-up included here, but it's going to be down below in the description, so we're not actually going to go through the full warm-up here. We've also got all like full scaling options and full options for all the movement standards as well. So that's all located below.
Keep in mind, if you want to be on the Insta Spotlight, it's going to be TTT TD3 for this week. And please put the comment below of what your score was. We love the data, and obviously we love seeing all the people interact.
We want more scores.
I say this week for the IG spot, or for next week's IG Spotlight, let's give it, instead of doing as everybody who tags, let's only post the group
the biggest
the most people.
So I like it.
Get as many people as you can in one shot, and we'll highlight that one.
Yeah, hey, gym owners, like do it as your Saturday Throwdown workout. I think that's a fun way to get everybody involved, and then obviously it gives us a bunch of data points, kind of see where everybody stacks up.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
Thanks for
didn't
watching,
you
guys.
have one more tip about the handstands?
One more tip? What was it?
If you're gonna fail your handstands, when do you do it?
Fail at the very end.
Fail at the very end.
All
That's
right,
the
Chris,
truth.
go ahead.
Just like Game of Thrones did? All right.
You crushed it way more in the last video.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
This week on long-term development, I'm going to talk about movement quality and what you can do in training to upgrade your movement quality. In order to talk about that, I have to explain all the different sub-characteristics that I believe fall within movement quality. So if you're talking about getting better at a specific movement, you can improve your ability to be intense with that movement. So if we're talking about a snatch, for example, improving your 1RM snatch, you can improve your endurance with regards to snatching. So that could be something like Randy, where you have to do 75 snatches for time. You can improve virtuosity, which is really what I would consider your technique, or how you figure out an optimal solution to be able to snatch. Or you can improve your freedom, which is your overall joint's ability to get into a position. So this is like maybe a PT gives you a movement protocol on your shoulders to improve your overhead position so you can snatch more effectively. So those four would be four characteristics that fall into movement quality. The fifth is variability, which is what I'm going to cover a little bit more in depth and give you a sample training session for how it relates to this week's throwdown. So in this week's throwdown, we had the kipping handstand push-ups. We introduced some new standards. That's as a way to try to upgrade the sport and figure out a way to try to create some sort of a standardization in the movement for people that are tall, people with long arms versus short arms, figure out a way to identify how to get a straighter body line without having to go through a complicated process of, measuring forearm length or arm length and putting a line on the wall. So obviously it's not a perfect strategy, but I did see that and the burpee box jump overs having the freedom to be able to go laterally really impacted people's ability to go through that workout without having to think about their movement. So training variability in your general movements is something that I think will allow you to get better long-term as an athlete. The benefits that I think from a sport perspective, or even if you're not an athlete and you just want to have a little bit more longevity with your training, the benefits of training to have variability with every specific movement that you would do in a sport or in this sport would be, first, that you could adapt to new standards quickly. So if you're training on a regular basis without doing the same thing all the time, then when something comes out as a new standard, you already have some sort of a practice changing the way that you move. If you always step up with one foot, if you always jump from one side, if you always rotate to one side, and then all of a sudden you have to alternate step up your burpees and you haven't practiced that, you're gonna waste so much time just thinking about, I have to, my left foot, my right foot, my left foot, which foot now? And that will take away from your focus in the workout. So one benefit is that you could adapt to changing standards pretty quickly. Second is that you could avoid pattern overload from repetitive stress. If you do the same thing over and over and over and over again on your body starts to kind of wear those patterns on itself, and your compensations start to become compounded on themselves, and those repetitive stress injuries become overuse. So you can avoid that by changing the way that you move on a regular basis and changing the movements that you do in training to have little nuanced differences. The last is that you can create more mindful training engagement. So it's really easy to get bored and disconnected from training if you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you're not focused on the little details of how you're moving, how you're accomplishing that task, and how you can change little pieces of your body to be able to create a novel stimulus. So an example training session, something that we would do in the design program, or I would do with one of my individual athletes if they had an individual weakness and we needed to accumulate volume, but I wanted it to be a variable session. This example is a 20-minute EMOM. I didn't put the number of burpees because that would be dependent on somebody's fitness level. But if we were doing burpee box jump overs, as an example from this week's workout, we could do in minute one, we would do face on burpees, and then we would rotate and step off the box. Then in the second minute, we would do lateral burpees. We would jump up and then step off the box laterally. In the third, we would do face on. We would jump onto the box and then jump off the box. In the fourth minute, we would face the box, do the burpee, and jump over the box. And in the last one, we would use dumbbells. We'd do a burpee and we'd actually step over. So this allows you to accumulate a ton of burpee volume, but it's not all the same burpee box jump overs. So you're not getting the repetitive stress. You're getting practice of a ton of different potential options of burpees that could potentially come up in a competition. And because you're going from one to the next, it creates a really mindful training engagement. So you're in the workout, you're trying to figure out what to do, what's next. And instead of thinking about, oh, I have 15 minutes left, I have 12 minutes left, and you're starting to get tired and fatigued, you're thinking about how you're actually moving, because improving your movement quality is the major goal of a session like this if you're trying to work on variability. So in your training, you can play with creating variances so that you can upgrade and take the benefits of having a variable moving body, or you can sign up for the design for a week, take a look at some of the sessions that we've put in there for skill development that have movement variability in them.